attend today, they can listen in later.
Awesome. Yeah, let's do that. Let's at least record it. I don't know that I'm so worried about attendance today.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's a couple minutes after, so hello everyone. Glad you're here. I wanted to start off by saying that the this task force member list is a little outdated. And so if you'd like to be a member, Daryl, would you want them to send me an email and I'll forward it to you, or how do you want to do that?
Yeah, there's a couple ways to do it. You can send me an email and I can add you directly. There's also, let me go to, I'm going to share my screen here.
Great, thank you.
If you go to the task force webpage, you should be able to see right now. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. And you go to up here at the top right, it says email lists. You can also get to it down here with email lists. If you click that, there's a button here you can click to join the task force, and then there's a separate button for each committee on the task force. You can join that way. And by joining the listserv for those committees, you're joining the committee. So that would be the easiest way to do it. But if you would rather just email me and I can add you directly, that's fine too.
Great, thank you. Okay, Daryl, we have 32 people who have joined. I know we have some action items to talk about, and I know for myself, I just have one or two questions about the CenturyLink numbers.
Sure. Before we get started, would you like me to, I think it'd probably be helpful if I could give a quick kind of refresher as to what this is all about, because I've gotten some emails this week asking what the purpose of this meeting was.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
So currently, and even in the new statute going forward, the prepaid wireless 911 funds, these are the funds that retailers collect at the retail level. Those are remitted to the Department of Revenue. And according to statute, the Department of Revenue gets to keep what it needs for administrative costs, which are extremely low. They don't use very much of it at all for administrative costs. And then the rest of it is supposed to be distributed based on wireless call volume. So whatever if your PSAPs, all of the PSAPs at your 911 authority take 5%, just as an example, of all of the wireless calls in the state, then you should be receiving 5% of the funds being distributed from DOR from the wireless prepaid 911 funds. To get those numbers, though, it's the commission's job to collate all those numbers annually and then send them to DOR. So before I send them to DOR this year, I wanted to have a quick conversation. Last year, we had some issues with getting the numbers to reflect reality. This year, I wanted to have a conversation, make sure that people had an opportunity to take a look at the numbers that we're using and see if there were any concerns or if there was any place there where we need to maybe look at a different method. The way we get these numbers is that every month CenturyLink sends me their alley retrieval reports. You should all be getting those as well, but I get a copy of all of the ones that are sent out to you. And we take those numbers and put them into a spreadsheet, which you're seeing on the screen right now. And just to demonstrate, I'm going to grab one of the reports. Let's go City of Thornton. This is from May of 2020. And I'm going to pop this over onto the other screen so you can see it. So here's one of the alley retrieval reports. You've got hourly distribution. We don't look at that. Special case retrievals. We don't look at that. And then we've got down here, we've got non-manual alley retrievals. And then we have non-manual base alley retrievals. And there's no explanation on this report as to what those mean. But the difference is that the first column, non-manual alley retrievals, shows all of your alley retrievals. CenturyLink, actually it's Intrado that I think puts these numbers together. I could be wrong though. puts that through a formula, though, and any calls from the same number that come in within a certain amount of time get taken off. And the reason is they're trying to remove rebids on wireless calls. So the numbers that we use in our master spreadsheet are these right here. These are the ones that have had the numbers removed for duplicate calls. And we don't really know how accurate that is, how closely it reflects reality, but it's the best numbers that we've been able to determine that we could get a hold of. Now, in the future, after everybody has been migrated to the ESINet for at least a year, so that we have the same numbers from the same source for every 911 center, we'll be able to use a different method, the Clearview reporting system that comes with the ESINet, and that will allow us to get actual call counts rather than alley retrieval counts. But in the meantime, and this is what we discussed last year, the discussion was, the consensus was that we should continue using these alley retrieval numbers until that Clearview reporting system is available for everybody. And we'll have to have at least 12 months worth of that to make it work. So then all of the numbers go in here. I have another column that separates out just the wireless call volume for each public safety answering point. It tallies them up per 911 governing body. So if there's more than one PSAP, we've got Boulder PD and Longmont, and those are the only two alley nodes. Now, this is actually a good example. So there's only 2 nodes in here, even though Boulder has several PSAPs, because the arrangement they have with CenturyLink is that they actually only have 2 alley nodes. So we only have to count up the calls from these 2 alley nodes because those are the only 2 they have, even though they have more PSAPs. But any number of alley nodes that they have get tallied up for that 911 governing body. They're totaled at the bottom, and then that is used to determine the percentage. So you can see a percentage for each of these. That's the percentage out of all of the wireless calls in the state that were answered by that 911 governing body. Then on this tab, the DOR tab, these are the percentages for based off of the spreadsheet. So these are just ported over from the first tab. These are the numbers from last year, actually, for the ones that are currently in effect. So the numbers we sent them last year that DOR is using right now. And then this percentage shows the percentage difference between this and this. So there is a 2% difference between 5.7% and 5.5%. Now you may be saying that's not 2%, but it's 2% difference between the two, even though it's really only about 0.2% difference. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's explaining math is not my strong suit. So with that, I will stop and ask if anybody has any questions before we go on.
Are these documents available that I can share with our financial people? It would make them happy to be able to understand where this money comes from.
Which documents do you mean? Do you mean the master spreadsheet?
Yeah.
I sent that out to everybody, and it's an open link, so you can share it with anybody you want. So if you want to share that with your financial people, that's fine.
Okay, that's an email you would have sent to me or to the authorities?
I sent it to all of the authorities, but I can send a copy to you too.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Daryl, this is Jack.
Go ahead.
My only question is, why are there missing months in some places?
So the reasons vary. In some cases, it's because of how the nodes were set up at the PSAP. And if those changed throughout the year so that calls were being routed. So for instance, you can see for Weld County, they've got their backup here. They weren't taking very many calls through their backup at all, but after they migrated to the ESINet, they started taking more. They basically started splitting their calls through their main alley node and their backup alley node. And so you see that they've started taking more through the secondary one. And that varies. Sorry, I'm just looking at this message. Jerry says PSAPs that are currently on the ESINet have other alley retrievals being counted towards their numbers, or are those PSAPs that have migrated are using the new formula? Jerry, even if you've migrated to the ESINet, you're still getting alley retrieval reports. So those, we're still using those until everybody has been on the ESINet long enough to use the new system. Then there's ones like, for instance, let's go up here to Phillips. Phillips, I didn't have any numbers for until April of 2020, and that's because before April of 2020, Phillips County was not using CenturyLink as their alley service. They were self-provisioning their own alley. And so until they got migrated to the ESINet and started getting alley service from, well, it wasn't even being migrated to the ESINet that mattered. It was starting to use the alley service from CenturyLink. All I have to go by are the numbers that they self-report. So I got those from Phillips County and plugged those in. Another one is Moffat County, and I'm still waiting for numbers from them. Moffat County was using a third-party service. Converge One was actually their provider. The alley counts were actually going to Converge One, and then Converge One was transmitting those to Moffat County for their system. They changed how that was set up in April, so from April forward, I have numbers for them, but before that, I don't. So I'm waiting for them to get me their numbers. Fremont County was the same way, as well as, I want to say there was another one, but I can't remember which one right now. And so you see blanks, those are usually because of changes in how the system was developed. But if that's wrong, if there shouldn't be a blank there, that's what I'm counting on you guys to let me know. And that's why I sent out the master list to all of the 911 authority contacts so that they could look it over and let me know. And so far, everybody who's responded has told me that the numbers look accurate for them.
Great, because yeah, I was just looking at Douglas County, and their main number is consistent. Their main trunk is consistent, and pretty consistent with the numbers. However, their secondary, their 719 trunk, doesn't have numbers for from September to April of 2020, and it doesn't have numbers from June and July of 2020. And then I looked at Colorado Springs because that's where those numbers should be. I mean, I know there were wireless calls from that area. And they have the same thing, June and July of 2020, that they have no numbers. And so I was just curious as to why that would happen. And I don't know if anybody from CenturyLink is on or not. So.
Well, I saw Tim Goodwin get on. I don't know who else we might have.
So, and my question is more out of curiosity because, like I said, I know that there were wireless, most likely wireless calls, if nothing else, on that 719 number between Douglas and Colorado Springs down in that lower area of the Douglas County.
Yeah, I just don't know. Yeah, I'll have to take that question back or something. We can work with you offline on it with somebody who actually understands how this process is done rather than just a mere lawyer.
That would be great, Tim. And like I said, I think the numbers are okay. It just feels like, well, where are these numbers kind of question.
Sure, understood.
And what would really be helpful is throughout the year when CenturyLink, it's Lisa Sheridan who sends these out from CenturyLink. When Lisa sends you these alley retrieval reports, look them over, and if they look wrong, let's try to get them fixed then instead of waiting till the end of the year. But that doesn't help us with this year right now. So if you see anything in here that's wrong, we can touch base with Lisa and see if she can find out if there was a missing report, or she can see if maybe one of the reports didn't get to me that should have gotten to me. Maybe that was the issue, and maybe that's why there's missing numbers. But otherwise, unless somebody tells me there's something wrong, I have to assume that there was something going on at your center that caused those numbers to look different, like you changed how your alley node was set up, or you changed which alley node you were using to receive your alley retrievals. And so unless somebody tells me, I don't have any way of knowing what might have happened.
And Daryl, that's a really good point. I do think we need to be paying a lot closer attention to these numbers, at least the alley retrievals, because I'm a little confused as to what the difference is going to be, but I guess I won't know until I see it between the new system and the old system.
Right. Well, one thing is I ask CenturyLink every year for wireless call volumes for the whole year. So I asked them before I submitted my report to the FCC this year, I asked them for all of 2019. And Bruce says, I don't trust alley retrievals at all. They don't compare to Power 911 or ECATs. And that's one of the reasons why I think we really should move to Clearview so that we're getting the same numbers for everybody from something that we feel is a little more reliable. And the reason, alley retrievals count alley retrievals. They don't count 911 calls. And that was the problem I always had with using alley retrievals to do this. But another issue is that if we come down here to the bottom, this is the total wireless calls that if you total up the alley retrieval report numbers for every PSAP in the state, this is what we got for August 2019 through July of 2020. And that is about half of what CenturyLink reports to me when I ask them for a whole year's worth. So when I ask them for the year 2019, so I could do my 2020 reports to the FCC, they give me numbers that are almost double that for wireless calls, or somewhere around double that. And I don't know what causes that difference other than possibly the formula that's removing duplicates from the alley retrievals. That very well could be what's causing that difference. And that's not necessarily a problem so long as it's reducing everybody's numbers by an equal percentage. Because that's all that really matters is the proportional representation in the numbers. But we just really have no way of knowing is one of the big problems we have with this approach.
So Daryl, this is Kimberly.
Mm-hmm.
I think how this whole presentation started, which is this is a bad way to do the process, but it's a way that we've done the process. So I guess we've applied it consistently bad since we've done the prepaid legislation years ago. We tried to find a way. This was our only option at the time. It's not a great solution, but it is, I think, how we've applied it has been fair because it's been applied equally around the state. So if numbers are wrong for one agency, they're going to be wrong for another agency. To the point of we have one more year under this, I think that's, staying the course is critical. And then once we're able to get in and take a look at those Clearview reports, I think we'll be able to determine which report we're pulling from, which numbers, and then we'll have access to all of it, as well as the agency will have access to their own. So they'll be able to confirm 1 + 1 = 2, because that's what we want to make sure of, is that their numbers match collectively of what's being pulled. So it's not great, it's not perfect, but it's what we have for one more year. And then I look forward to us making a change as soon as we can.
Yeah, and to Kimberly's point, I'm not suggesting that we change how we're doing it this year, because we hashed through all of that last year and we decided to stick with this. That was the consensus, because there really wasn't anything better to go to. And until we can switch to the Clearview reporting numbers, we don't really have a better option right now, unless somebody has a suggestion that we haven't heard yet. I just want to make sure that everybody knows about the weaknesses of this, so they don't feel like I'm trying to brush them under the carpet. And then when you take those numbers and you put them in here, and this shows the delta shows the difference between the two, most of the percentages are fairly small. Some of the percentages are a little bigger. So the wireless call volume in Cheyenne County went down by 32%. Why they went down by that percentage, I have no idea. Custer County is an easy one because they shut down about a quarter of the way into the year, and Fremont County started taking theirs, so that one makes sense. Fremont counties, however, went down a lot, and I don't know why. So, you look at these, if you feel like there's anything out of the ordinary, and you can kind of pinpoint where that problem is, let me know. But otherwise, I don't really have anything to go by to tell me, where the issue is. Pitkin counties went up by 208%. That's a big difference. I don't know what caused that change. San Miguel County went up by 26%. But most everybody is pretty close to where they were last year, within, say, 25% of where they were last year. Another thing to keep in mind is that starting January 1st, the prepaid surcharge fee is going from a percentage, which it is right now, of 1.4% to a flat rate of $1.38 per transaction. I have no idea what that's going to do to our revenues. That my suspicion is that will increase the revenue coming in from prepaid wireless 911. But since we have no numbers to look at regarding how many transactions happen per month or per year, it's really kind of a guessing game. So even if your percentage went down this year, you may actually get more money depending on how much improvement to our wireless prepaid 911 revenues is visible from the change from a percentage to a flat rate. So that's another thing to keep in mind. The action items I had, a couple have been checked off. I've got numbers from Freecom for the whole year. I got numbers from Phillips County. I'm still waiting on numbers from Craig, but Converge One is working on getting those numbers from when Craig was on their system. Is there anybody from Custer County on today? Anyone? So Custer County shut down a quarter of the way through the year. I don't know if they want me to send their funds to them in 2021 or have those funds sent to Fremont County, which is now taking their 911 calls. But I will wait to hear from them on that response. So that's really all I had. Jackie, unless you've got something else, or if somebody has any questions or comments, if they've looked at their numbers and they think their numbers are wrong, we can circle back with Lisa and see if we can, get see if there was something wrong with the reports that month.
This is Jackie. The only thing I have is we could take questions from anybody and everybody. And also I would kind of like to ask the group moving forward, since we're going to stay on this for another year, moving forward, what are some of the things we can be doing to help move forward in this transition? And I mean, other than maybe do a monthly meeting to look at our alley retrievals, which might be a good idea. I don't know. But any other suggestions or ideas for this particular committee to kind of move forward and keep track of these?
This is Daryl. I would just say, throughout the year, as you get those alley retrieval reports from Lisa, take a look at them. Maybe keep your alley retrieval reports handy from the previous year and compare them. And if there's a huge jump or a huge drop, that might be an indication that something has changed in your system or in how CenturyLink/Intrado is counting those numbers. And so it's a good idea to go ahead and point that out at the time so that we can figure out what the issue is. It's a lot easier to do it at the time than it is to figure it out months later.
And then the only other suggestion I have as we start seeing the prepaids for next year, that maybe in March we have a meeting and see what that looks like for everybody, see if it's made a difference, if it's not made a difference, if there's something we need to look into.
Right, and for next year, we're going to have a decision because some of the PSAPs will have been on Clearview for a whole year, and some of them will only have been on Clearview for about 6 months by the time we start putting the numbers together for 2022's distributions. So we'll have to decide if we want to stay on alley retrievals for 1 more year at that point, or if we want to use 6 months worth of numbers and call it good. I think there's a couple of different options we can take at that time to move forward.
So what does the group think about scheduling a meeting in March to discuss the changes they may or may not have seen in prepaid revenue? And then maybe a meeting in June to see what Clearview looks like?
This is Vicki. I think that's a good amount of time.
Jennifer says she thinks that's a good idea.
Okay. Do Mondays work for most? It looked like it from the doodle poll.
Yeah, Mondays are usually good.
Okay, I'll set up a meeting of this committee in March and in June. And again, if you want to be on the committee and you're not on the, because what I'm going to do is I'll stop sending it to the total task force. The only reason I sent it to the total task force this time was because the list was a little outdated. So I'll stop sending the invites to the total task force. So if you want to be on this committee, make sure you go to the website and get on this committee. Are there any other questions, thoughts, concerns?
Before we adjourn, I see Holly Bice is on the call. Holly helps me actually collate these numbers every month because they come in a wave from Lisa Sheridan, so it takes a couple hours to get them all entered. Holly, do you have any comments or suggestions to the group?
Hey, Daryl, it's Holly. No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, Jackie, if you need me to set those up so that you can have the webcast available, let me know the dates that you want to put them on. And
that would be awesome. I was actually just thinking, since this was the first Monday at 11 a.m., that we would keep those March and June.
Okay.
Yeah, if we want to send out invites, like I said, I didn't know how long you wanted to give the group to get on the particular subcommittee.
Well, if they join the subcommittee late, it will send them the invite as soon as
perfect.
they join. Yep, it's nice how that works. So we can.
Oh, that's very perfect.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, that's my suggestion. And if anybody has any objections to the first week in March and the first week in June, the first Mondays at 11.
Sounds good.
I want to thank everybody for showing up. And like I said, if you have any questions or need anything, please let us know. I know that the transition is going to be interesting, but we're glad you're all here.
And everybody cross your fingers that the amount from the new flat wireless prepaid 911 surcharge really improved your bottom line.
Yeah, I'm really hoping.
Me too. All right. Well, bye, everybody.
All right. Thank you all.
Bye. Thanks.